Have you ever been told that honesty is the best policy? That being truthful is the highest virtue? That if you just speak your truth, everything will work out in the end? It's comforting, isn't it? We want to believe that the world rewards integrity. We're taught to tell the truth in school, in relationships, at work. But have you ever looked around and noticed something deeply unsettling? That the people who rise to power, who command attention, who shape the course of history, they're not always the most honest. In fact, sometimes they're the most cunning, the most strategic, the most calculating. So here's the question that this entire journey revolves around. What if honesty actually makes you weak? This isn't just a provocative question, but it's a harsh, ancient dilemma, and no one dared to say it more brutally than Niccolo Machiavelli. He didn't pretend the world was fair. He didn't romanticize virtue. He stared directly into the chaos of human nature and said, if you want to survive, if you want to lead, if you want to win, you must stop treating honesty as sacred. Because the world doesn't reward virtue. It rewards effectiveness. That's the brutal lesson. And it's one that shakes the very foundation of how we think we should live.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
Now, before you assume this is just a cynical take on life, let's slow down. This isn't about becoming a liar. It's about asking why we cling so tightly to honesty, even when it hurts us. Why do we equate being good with being truthful? Why do we assume that truth-telling is always noble, always moral, and always wise? Machiavelli's insight is this: truth is a weapon, not a virtue. And like any weapon, it must be used with precision, not with blind devotion. Let me ask you something personal. How many times have you told someone the truth when you knew it would hurt them? Or worse, how many times have you told the truth about yourself and watched others use it to damage you? The friend you confided in who later betrayed you. The boss you were honest with who quietly replaced you. The lover who asked for your truth and then left when they heard it. We're told to be authentic, to be transparent, to be real, but no one tells us that honesty, in the wrong context, can be a form of self-sabotage. Machiavelli understood this better than anyone. In The Prince, he writes that a ruler must learn how not to be good. He must learn to bend morality to the demands of power. Not because evil is admirable, but because power respects results, not intentions. But if you cling to honesty in a world that weaponizes vulnerability, you make yourself a target. You hand your enemies the blade with which they will cut you down. Is that noble, or is it naive? But here's the deeper layer. This isn't just about politics. It's about life. We all live in a battlefield of perception. Every day, we curate who we are to the world. We present versions of ourselves at work, on social media, even to our friends. We know instinctively that full honesty is dangerous. So why do we still hold on to the myth that it's always good? Could it be that we're addicted to the feeling of being morally right, even if it costs us everything? Could it be that honesty is less about truth and more about ego? Think about the people you admire most. The ones who seem to move through life with power, control, presence. Are they always honest? Or are they strategic? Do they reveal everything, or do they reveal just enough? Do they speak their minds at all times, or do they speak when it matters most? There's a difference between truth and timing. between honesty and wisdom, and Machiavelli would argue that one without the other is dangerous. Now, don't get me wrong, we're not advocating for a life of lies. That would be just as foolish. This is about something deeper, something more unsettling. It's about understanding that truth is not inherently good. It is a tool, and tools must be used with judgment. A scalpel in a surgeon's hand can save a life. That same scalpel in a child's hand can kill. So what makes the scalpel good or bad? Not the object itself, but the wisdom of the person holding it. Honesty is no different. So here's a question I want you to sit with. Is it more important to be honest or to be effective? What if the two are not always compatible? What if the pursuit of honesty makes you vulnerable in a world that rewards manipulation? And if that's true, how should you live? We're taught that character is about truthfulness. But Machiavelli suggests that character is about adaptability. The truly powerful are not those who tell the truth at all costs, but those who know when and how to tell it. They understand that virtue must be flexible, not rigid. That life is not a courtroom, it's a jungle. And in the jungle, the lion who roars too loudly gets heard, but also gets hunted. Let's take this further. Let's say you choose to be honest. You tell your boss that you're unhappy. You tell your partner that you're struggling. You tell your friends that you feel lost. Those are all truthful things. But what happens next? Do they support you? Or do they start to pull away? Do they admire your vulnerability, or do they begin to see you as weak? We want to believe that truth builds connection, but often it builds distance. Why? Because people fear weakness, and honesty in its rawest form looks like weakness. Now pause. Does that mean we should suppress our truth forever? Of course not. But it means we must treat truth like fire. Powerful, illuminating, dangerous. Use it wisely, or it will burn you. The iron mask of power, why strategic deception builds strength. Let's go deeper. If honesty can make you weak, then what makes you strong? Machiavelli answers with chilling clarity: strategic deception. Not lies for the sake of cruelty, but calculated control over information. The ability to sculpt perception, to decide what others see and what they never will. This isn't about being fake, it's about being deliberate. It's about recognizing that in a world where everyone is watching, the truth is not what happened, it's what people believe happened. And this is where the iron mask of power comes in. Imagine two versions of yourself. One says everything you feel, thinks, desires. The other says only what is necessary. One acts on impulse. The other acts on strategy. One trusts that people will understand. The other makes sure they do. Which one survives longer in a hostile world? Which one commands more respect? Which one builds real influence? See, the mask is not a lie. It's armor. It's not about hiding your soul, it's about protecting it. Power is not given to the most honest. It's given to the most composed, the most disciplined. The ones who can remain calm while others fall apart. And that strength doesn't come from raw truth, it comes from controlled revelation, telling the truth when it serves you, withholding it when it doesn't, not because you're deceitful, but because you're wise. Think about nature. The lion doesn't roar before it attacks. The snake doesn't warn before it strikes. And yet we humans are told to reveal ourselves at all times, is to be transparent, open, authentic, vulnerable. But nature shows us something else. Power thrives in silence, in mystery, in precision. So why do we ignore this? Machiavelli admired the fox and the lion. He said a ruler must be both. The lion has power. The fox has cunning. The lion defends with strength. The fox escapes with intelligence. If you are only strong, you will be outwitted. If you are only clever, you will be overpowered. But if you are both, you are unstoppable. And what ties them together? The ability to choose what others see. Ask yourself, how much of who you are is a performance? Before you answer none, consider this: when you go to work, when you post online, when you meet someone new, do you show your entire self? Or do you curate it? And that curation is not dishonesty, it's survival. It's your mask. And the question is not whether you wear one, the question is whether you control it, or whether it controls you. Now, some will say, but isn't that manipulative? Isn't that immoral? And here we must ask, who defines morality? Society? Culture? Religion? Or power itself? Because if morality is used as a weapon to control behavior, then those who define morality also define who is allowed to rise. And Machiavelli warns us, never confuse morality with strategy. The world is not a church, it is a chessboard. And on that board, the honest pawn is the first to fall. So here's a brutally honest truth: the most successful people in the world are not the most honest. They are the most perceptive. They understand how humans work. They understand fear, desire, insecurity, and they use that understanding to shape outcomes, not always for evil, but always with intent. Think of great leaders. They don't always tell the whole truth. They tell the right truth, the version that inspires, unites, motivates. Do you think Martin Luther King Jr. told his fears to everyone? Do you think Steve Jobs revealed every uncertainty? Do you think politicians, CEOs, revolutionaries walk into rooms and say, "Here's everything I'm feeling today"? Of course not. They wear the mask. They choose the moment. Because if you want to lead others, you must manage perception, not just deliver facts. Here's a profound question. What do you gain from being fully honest, and what do you lose? Tell the truth too early, and people will not believe you. Tell it too late, and they will resent you. But tell it with timing, and it becomes power. That is the art of deception, not to lie, but to unveil at the perfect moment. And this brings us to a deeper, darker realization. The world does not reward truth tellers, it rewards illusionists who know when to become truth tellers. That's the Machiavellian paradox. The illusion is the bridge. The truth is the destination. But if you give people the truth too soon, they'll burn the bridge before crossing it. Let's turn inward for a moment. Think of a time when you were completely honest and it backfired. Maybe you opened up to someone and they judged you. Maybe you admitted your mistakes and lost respect. Maybe you told the truth in a situation where silence would have saved you. How did that feel? Did it make you stronger or did it make you smaller? Now think of a time when you held your truth, waited, watched, and then spoke when the timing was right. When your words had impact, when your message landed, When you weren't just truthful, you were strategic. Didn't that feel more powerful? So the question becomes, do you want to speak or do you want to be heard? Because the two are not the same. Honesty speaks. Strategy is heard. Machiavelli didn't hate virtue. He just refused to pretend it was enough. He believed in results, in power, clarity, control. And that means knowing that truth must be earned, not given freely, not wasted, but wielded, like a sword, like a flame, like a crown. The currency of control, how vulnerability is sold, bought, and broken. We live in an age that worships vulnerability. Scroll through social media and you'll see it everywhere, people opening up about their fears, their traumas, their struggles. And we applaud it. We call it bravery. We call it authenticity. We say thank you for being real. But beneath the surface of this cultural moment lies a dangerous contradiction. Vulnerability is now a currency, and like any currency, it can be manipulated, exploited, and devalued. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Not all vulnerability is respected. In fact, much of it is used against you. The moment you open yourself up, you hand others a kind of power, the power to judge, to react, to weaponize your truth. And in a world that is increasingly transactional, your vulnerability becomes a product, that is spectacle, something to be consumed, commented on, even monetized. Machiavelli would have seen this for what it really is, a trap disguised as liberation. Because when society tells you to be vulnerable without teaching you how to protect yourself, it is not empowering you, it is disarming you. And that is how control works, not by force, but by convincing you to drop your guard willingly, to believe that exposure equals strength, that confession equals trust, that openness equals intimacy. But ask yourself, how many people truly earned your vulnerability? How many people proved they could hold it without hurting you? How many times have you shared your deepest self only to feel regret, shame, manipulation? That feeling, that deep ache of being misunderstood or betrayed is not just emotional, but it's philosophical, because it confronts a core illusion we've been taught, that the world is safe for your truth. It isn't. And Machiavelli knew this centuries ago. He saw that the world is not a confessional, but it is an arena. And in that arena, those who bleed publicly are not always honored, they are often hunted. That's why he warned rulers never to show their full intentions, not because he was cruel, but because he understood human nature. He understood that people don't always want the truth. They want the appearance of truth. They want the version of you that fits their expectations, not the one that shatters them. So what does this mean for us? Are we supposed to become cold, closed, guarded? No, that's not the point. The point is mastery, but the mastery of revelation, knowing when to open, to whom, and how. Because your vulnerability is not a gift to be handed out freely, it is a treasure to be revealed only when the ground is stable and the receiver is worthy. Let's flip the question, why do we crave vulnerability in others? Why do we feel closer to someone when we see their weaknesses? Is it empathy, or is it an unconscious shift in power? When someone reveals their pain, their mistakes, their fears, we feel connected, yes. But we also feel a subtle sense of control. We know more about them than they know about us. and that asymmetry becomes leverage. This is why Machiavelli emphasized appearances over essence. But he didn't say, "Be evil." He said, "Appear just, even if you must act otherwise." Because perception is power, and vulnerability, once made public, becomes part of your perception. It becomes part of what people categorize, judge, and remember. So here's a hard question. Have you ever used someone's vulnerability against them? Even silently, even subconsciously. Maybe you didn't say anything out loud, but did you begin to see them differently? Did you lose a little respect? Feel a little superior? If you're honest with yourself, the answer might disturb you. And that's the point. Vulnerability is not inherently good. It is context dependent. It is only powerful when it is chosen, not demanded. Now think about the culture we're building. We tell people to be real, but we don't give them a safe place to do it. We tell people to speak their truth, but we punish them when their truth doesn't align with ours. We say don't be afraid to be vulnerable, but we reward those who perform vulnerability better than those who live it. So what are we really doing? We're commercializing the soul, turning honesty into content, turning confession into engagement. And in doing so, we distort the very meaning of truth. Because now, truth isn't something sacred. It's something strategic, something to be packaged, edited, and sold. Machiavelli would not be surprised. He would say, if people want honesty, give them a version that serves you. Not because you're a fraud, but because truth, like power, must be managed. If you bleed on the stage, make sure the lights are on your terms. If you cry in public, make sure the narrative is yours. Because the moment you lose control of your story, someone else will write it for you.